Okay, let's go ahead and start putting our front and side files to actual use now. Okay, so just make sure you've got it snapped over to the front view. To do that, just left click and drag your mouse, hold down shift, and it snaps. Okay, we're going to zoom in here, and just don't forget we're in orthographic mode here, so we're just going to go and do some moving with, not elastic, normal move tool. Okay, so I'm just going to bring her overall eye area lower down just slightly, like so. Okay, so just going to put it there, and you'll see that you probably won't likely have to change too much about the shape of the eyes or anything like that. They should more or less, and I mean more or less with an asterisk, fits basically. Okay, and then the nose here, we can sort of align the nostrils a little bit, and of course the mouth here, we're going to have to sort of push it up. Now notice here that I'm actually using a very sort of big move brush. Okay, not using a small one, because what we don't want to do is move something up like that and you get a crease or a fold. We're doing very, very big moves here. Okay, and of course if you'd like, you can give some attention to the ears as well, but nobody really cares about ears. Okay, there you go. Okay, and then we can also adjust the side here, the jawline, maybe a little bit wider, but I'm not going to go all the way too much, because that usually ends up sort of making the face look too wide. Just a little bit, and the neck I'm virtually going to ignore. Okay, now over to the side view here, let's have a look at what we've got. So the eye, we are not going to move, because obviously this is the mismatch here between the side and the front, and in my experience, no matter how much you do your best to line up the side and the front, it just simply isn't going to be a one-to-one. Okay, so you're going to have to basically make a few calls in terms of which angle you're going to prioritize over the other. So for the eyes, I think it's more important the eyes be in the correct spot from the front rather than the side, so I'm going to ignore how they are placed on the side here. Okay, so the nose, of course, is going to give way over to the side, so we're going to move the nose up ever so slightly. Okay, and just try to keep the what can we say, that the nose, you know, try and keep it the best of both worlds essentially. Okay, the nose is a tricky one, and then you can sometimes also get a bit confused if you just pull back your mesh a little bit just to see how close you are to the actual reference, because it can be a bit hard to see. It can be helpful sometimes just to sort of pull your mesh back a little bit so you can see what's going on. Oops, what's happening behind the shadows. And of course you've always got these sliders here like the enhance factor, and you can see there the enhance factor can just help sometimes just hide some of the shading so you can actually get a better understanding as to what's going on. So I'm just going to mask off the nose and the eyes there. I'm just going to concentrate on the mouth, and the reason why I masked it off, oh, and I should mention, you should be using symmetry for this. Okay, haven't done anything too bad just yet because I've been using a large brush size, but if I'd been using a smaller brush size that would have been quite a bit of a problem. But with symmetry on now, I'm going to use a big brush size here. Oops, after I've masked out the top areas there, and I'm just going to pull her jaw forward, the lower half of her face forward. Okay, I wouldn't have been able to do that if the nose area wasn't masked. Okay, and I can see here, though she's got a jawline that does seem to follow the tendency there, she's got a bit more sort of, I would say, mask down there as well. Okay, and she's going to say the lips are roughly in the right place there. Okay, just spend your time getting the right shape. There you go, and obviously you see that her nostrils are a bit higher than what we've got here. Oh, we've masked it off, silly me. Okay. Alright, and we can sort of pull the neck forward a little bit just to help with the strangeness of it all. And the ear, if you're so inclined, you can always put the ear back in a better position if you like, that's fine, but I usually ignore the ears for now. Okay. So, that's it guys, that's all we got to do for creating a facial likeness. Well done! Give yourself a round of applause. No, unfortunately not. There's a heck of a lot more to it than just that, I'm afraid. Okay, but what we have done now is we've assured ourselves that the side of our head mesh and the front of our head mesh is more or less Katie McGrath. Okay, yes, that's a verb. Okay, That's basically what we're looking at there. So you can see this very strange head now. So what we're going to have to do is a few little adjustments here for this video in particular. Let's bring the enhance factor down a little bit. And we'll just bring that down because we've got to move the eyes. The eyes are in a completely wrong place right now. And in fact, let's activate that poly paint, shall we? So we'll go to poly paint, we'll hit colorize, so you can see that. We've got to bring them a bit down, like that, back into position. Okay, looking a bit peculiar before, and we've got to do the same for the brows as well. So the brows there, going to have to bring them a little bit more forward. Now this might be tricky to do because we're looking at it from the wrong area, but just put them in the right place. Turn off symmetry for this, and maybe we just want to go back to enhance. Yeah, so you go. I've been putting it to the shadow rather than actually where her eyebrows are. Okay, there we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and we'll get rid of the floor, which gets rid of our reference, and we can see what we've got. Not too impressive very much so far, is it? Well, that's where the rest of this kind of job comes in. Okay, all we've got to do now is we'll just smooth out some of these areas here on the face. Okay, we made a seam line there, but you could probably actually arguably sort of say just with those small changes there, you can see a little bit of the likeness already shining through. So that just goes to show you how much of a profile can really affect the change, the shape of the face, and obviously overall here. Now if we put it into perspective mode, it still holds up. Still holds up. Okay, before we finish this video, there's one little thing I will remind you to do if you're a little bit new to this, but boy, I wish somebody had told me about this sort of what they call focal distance in ZBrush. Okay, it's the angle distortion. For example, let me just put a head on here. If I do a focal distance of 18, you're going to get like this kind of warping effect where the nose is going to be trying to poke you through your screen. But if you go to 85, you're going to get almost an orthographic level of distortion. Okay, can you see that? There's really not much difference between an 85 and an orthographic projection. But if I was to go to 18 and zoom in, you can see that the nose is threatening to poke itself through the screen. If I change it to orthographic, there's quite a big discrepancy between the two. Okay, now obviously we're not going to be working in orthographic because that's a bit daft, but we are going to be working at a factor of at least 85. And the reason why we've done that for you is because most portraits, photographs are taken with like an 85 focal distance. Okay, and there's lots of, there's the inverse measurement as well, which I think is an angle or something like that, but yeah, basically a higher lens, like 85mm lens or something like that, which gives you less angle distortion. Okay, now what happens if you're working in the wrong angle distortion? You'll be forever wondering why you're not getting the face looking correct. Okay, you'll be there trying to sculpt features and whatnot, and it just won't look right because the angle distortion is far too great. So at 85, that's portrait level. I believe that's more or less the same angles that these shots were taken at, because that's again a standard, almost a standard measurement. Okay, so hopefully we'll be working with a really kind of similar sort of angle of distortion, if you like. Okay. At this point in time, in case it wasn't obvious already, what I'd like you to do in between videos is go ahead and cut the 3/4 views out, save them as separate images, not to reference and put into ZBrush, but just to have on your other screen, or drop them into PureRef, as we'll be using them heavily to achieve what we say, like Katie McGrath's likeness. Okay, these are absolutely essential. Cannot stress how essential they are. So go ahead now and cut them out, or find pictures of your muse and whatnot 3/4 wise, and just go ahead and isolate a 3/4 view. Now if you don't have two like I've got here, unfortunately you just have to mirror your 1/3 view and just use that, because most people's faces are more or less symmetrical. Not really, but more or less. Okay, so that's how you have to work around with that. Okay, fabulous guys. Okay, so in the next video what we're going to do is we're going to use these 3/4 views and the rest of the again a lovely autosave and our front and side views. Again, cut them out, put them in PureRef as well. It's good to have them on another pure, like another window or something like that, and we're going to start changing this face into well, our very own version of Katie McGrath.